Debate saying this out loud. I think that I just came for the coffee.
Cheers, boys.
Yeah.
Today's guest is super special. I don't want to waste much time bringing her on. Give me a little test, Grandma.
Yes.
That sounds perfect. She's got the best mic out of all of us. Welcome. My name is Mitchell Goldstein, and I'd like to officially welcome you to the Questions Over Coffee podcast. Whether you're listening or watching online, however you're taking this in, we appreciate you stopping by, checking us out, and giving us a shot. Questions Over Coffee is going to be a conversation with a lot of interesting people. I have my co-host Christian with me. He's going to be on most episodes, but we're going to bring in guests from all around our area and surrounding areas, people who are making a difference in their community, spreading light, and trying to make the world a better place. That's our goal here at Questions Over Coffee. Have some cool, intimate conversations, learn a little bit about each other while ultimately trying to spread light and make the world a better place. So, for my first guest, I thought there was no one better than Danny McGhee himself. This guy is an author that is vulnerable enough to show his trials and his rock bottom, but has lived a life where he has reached it to a point that I think a lot of people can take some incredible value from him. So he's got a raw story. I want to warn you now, we're taking a little bit of a risk with this just because I know that there is some nitty gritty in here, but I want to get into it. I feel like God is leading this, so I could have thought of no one better for the first guest than this guy, Danny. He's an author of 2 books. The first one has sold over 100,000 copies. It's extremely popular in prisons, in a lot of places where people need to see hope. So I'm not going to waste any more time. We're going to bring him on for you right now. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Danny McGhee.
Danny.
Thank you.
Cool. Danny, thank you for joining us, bro.
Absolutely.
And I want to just introduce everyone really quickly to the co-host. This is Christian, my buddy. We've been friends about 15 years.
I'm Christian Sump. I'll keep it short, man. The life I've lived, I try and stay out of God's way as best of my ability. So I'm going to practice some of that right now.
Cool. So we'll let God be God. Danny, appreciate you coming on, man.
I just came for the coffee, man.
Hey, cheers. Cheers, boys.
Yeah.
And I apologize. You can't fit this in a mug.
No worries. I'm with you on it. All right. We're going to get into it real quick, real fast, not waste any time. Danny, you're somebody that I like to define as like a trailblazer. Like when I see you and I kind of want to start by just like giving you your flowers and giving you your props. You rapid fire, man. Like you are just intentionally spreading light, like not only daily, but like multiple times throughout the day. So can you kind of just tell the viewers, tell everyone a little bit about like how you serve in the community, maybe even how we met? I think that's a cool story, but a little bit about what you do to help and why you do it.
Well, like you said, vulnerability is one of the main ways I get back. I want to be a light for those who are walking in the shadows that I once walked in, who are struggling the way I once struggled, because it's nothing short of a miracle that I'm here and that I have the ability to do the things that I do. I own a nonprofit called the Agape Projects. I became a nonprofit just because of formality, because so many people recommended that I do so, but I had been doing work in the streets long before we ever formed the nonprofit. And, it started with a toy run. I survived a life I shouldn't have survived, and I built myself a career from ground up, and I got enough money to where I wasn't worrying where my next check was going to come from or how I was going to pay rent. And I suddenly felt blessed, like I didn't deserve this. And so I went to a yoga class one day, and, I was like a 32-year-old single male in a room full of 50-year-old women that were like running circles around me, and I was sweating and shaking and dying. But when I got out, I sat in my car covered in sweat and just felt amazing and open-minded. And the idea came to me, why don't you take some of your money and take some children shopping for Christmas whose parents are either addicts, who are dead from the disease of addiction, or incarcerated, because it's not the children's fault, the choices that the parents made. And at that time, I was running a bail bonds company, so I saw it in my office all the time. I saw these broken families. And I didn't want the children to be doomed to repeat the cycle because they missed the things that their peers had. So a very small gesture, I just took $2,500 of my own money. I took 50 children to Toys R Us for Christmas, let them pick out $50 worth of stuff each, and took them shopping. It was a small thing, but most major things start with something small. I planted the seed. I shared pictures of these happy children on Facebook, and all of a sudden people said, well, why didn't you tell me I want to sponsor kids? And next year it was 100 kids. And then the next year it was 150 kids. And now 13 years later, we're up to 250 children shopping for $100 a piece, which $25,000 is a lot different than 2,500, and that's what a community can do together. But I realized the impact that I could make. And we'll get into my history, but I was a homeless, desperate, bottom of the barrel scrounging scumbag who society didn't want anything to do with. And now here I was able to rally society together and make a difference for something positive. So I immediately dove in with both feet, and I started doing homeless feedings, and I started working with addicts, and I started working with senior citizens in low income housing. And it became a new addiction where I just wanted to change the world in any way that I could. And at that moment in time, the bail bonds industry had taken a political downturn. So I had tons of free time with nothing to do, and I had some money saved up. So I spent a few years doing nothing but charity and philanthropy work and developing new ideas and ways to impact the community. And as you know, that involved mission trips to third world countries. That involved driving to Florida and the Carolinas and Texas when they were impacted with hurricanes, going to Puerto Rico, building roofs when they got hit with a hurricane, and tons of different local projects.
So you don't really just like have a specific focus, disaster relief or active addiction. You'll just feel a calling and you'll just say, I got to go. Is that how that works?
Exactly.
Yeah. And has it, because, and I also want to like give value to like the first time you went, you said $2,500 isn't a lot of money. That's a lot of money, like 25,000 is obviously significantly more, but to the person that maybe only has 25 or 250, like I want to like try and inspire that, like that can make a difference because it all started there,
Yeah.
And that's still a significant amount of money for one person, you getting to a point where you're like, man, I don't deserve this. And maybe we can get into like why you thought that, but to feel like that, but then to take $2,500, was that first time? Was that difficult for you? Was that stepping out in faith? Like, how did that feel to just blow $2,500 on somebody other than yourself?
Well, like I said, at the time, I was making over six figures a year, and I have an intense amount of guilt, survivor's guilt.
I can relate, bro.
For being here when everybody around me in my past life died, for being successful at that time and come full circle, I'm successful again in my current business, when I was a horrible human being. And so for me to give that little bit of a six-figure income, that's why I say it was a small gesture.
And that's that message of hope.
Like,
you know what I mean? Like to see where you came from. And I mean, read the book, right? To see where that transformation, right? Like that is a huge leap. You know what I mean? That's where a lot of people can hear this story and be like, I can do that too, or something like it, right?
Yeah.
Or at least give them that spark to get along the path to recovery.
Well, that's a good prompt. Like to that person that's listening that feels like you did and wants to feel like you do. What advice do you give them on where to start?
Well, I started small too. I mean, that wasn't my first time ever giving money.
Okay.
Right. I've always been a generous person. I've always been an empathetic person. Even in my worst of times, even though I might steal everything you had so that I could get well, I still had the empathetic heart.
And that's, I want to cut you real quick because when you were saying like when I was a terrible person, but I've read your first book a couple times and that I don't feel like you're a terrible person. Like you're making some mistakes and you're doing some crazy stuff, but you always had that like that conscience in you. It seemed like you had, whether you had a developed relationship with God or not, it was like he was always there kind of reminding you.
You mentioned it in the book several times.
Held on to your flesh and were acting in your own, but I don't think you were always a terrible person. I think you were just, growing up, making some mistakes that caused some serious consequences.
Well, we can go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I'm the type of person that tends to believe that nobody is a terrible person.
Okay.
I believe that all people are inherently good, we just get caught up in our certain things, be it addiction, be it ego, be it fear, jealousy, or whatever. I'd say 0.0001% of the population are actually evil, bad people, sociopaths.
Inherently.
But we're all good people, and I try to see that light in everybody. I want to circle back to the point that we originally made. So, I would go into a restaurant, throw $100 bill at the waitress. If she had a sad story, or I would give money to the homeless or anything like that. But those weren't things that I wanted to broadcast. To me, those weren't major things. Now, in the scheme of things, in the average American's eyes and mentality, giving $2,500 is a lot of money. From a Jesus perspective, Jesus would have gave a whole 100,000.
Right,
he would have gave everything he had, the shirt off his back. From a Gandhi mentality or from somebody like that, that's a lot. So that's why I kind of downplay it, $2,500, because of where I came from and what I felt I deserved. But yeah, for me to get from 2,500 in donation, from my personal donation, to now I'll step that up a little bit because I'm making a little more in the real estate world. But to get to the $25,000 donation, that takes a lot of people giving $25 donations, and those make a huge difference.
Yeah.
It's the ocean is made up of billions of little drops, not, it's not just one big chunk of water.
Yeah. Yeah. And to give a little context into what Danny does for a living, you just officially became a top 1% realtor in the nation.
Yeah, I don't even know how that.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Yeah, no, that's incredible. I mean, it's a cutthroat industry. And one thing, like while reading your story and kind of learning about you, no matter what you did, you do a lot of sales, a lot of promotion and a lot of that kind of stuff. No matter what you've done, you've excelled incredibly fast. And one thing that I resonate and kind of relate to you with is in your second book, you talk about the bail bonds company getting started and how you have that energy for starting a new business, like picking the colors, the logo. That is this for me right now. That birth of just a love passion. So I really relate to you in that sense, man. And,
humans, we're created in the likeness, which means we're creators. We were built to create. Like, it's in our DNA, every one of us. And that's the most exciting thing in the world, is building and creating something out of nothing, in my opinion.
I love it. Dude, I was like telling myself in my head, I'm like, don't talk right now. Let him talk. Cause that resonates to me. I'm trying to be a creator of all things. Yeah, man, like just hearing the story and now seeing how incredibly successful you are in real estate. Will you talk a little bit about like your value prop and how you provide value to people that I think is different, not just like with a lower commission or anything like that, but like, dude, some of the stories of how you've served these people, some of your clients, it shows that like, no matter what you do, you're willing to give your best. So will you talk a little bit about just like real estate industry, maybe some crazy transactions or, kind of your experience?
Yeah. So, there's 48,000 and rising agents in the state of Maryland. You break it down, it's like 10,000 per county. And everybody wants to become a real estate agent. It's trendy right now. Just, when markets shift, everybody wants to be a loan officer. At one point in time, everybody wanted to be a bail bondsman. I mean, it depends. They see certain people reaching success and you want to dive in. And I have this conversation often. How are you going to stand apart? For me, I was in a sense lucky, but it was also structured. The fact that I've self-branded myself for 15 plus years, and that started way back when I had to get creative because I had multiple felonies and I couldn't get a normal job, and I had to create a nightclub promotion company while sober. Which is ridiculous, but it was a stepping stone for me. And so I marketed, that's what I do. I market. And everybody in Baltimore knew Danny Diamond at the time. And I threw parties all over the city. And then when I transitioned into the bail bonds industry, my name was all over the place. And then when I got into the Agape projects and the nonprofit, I became a more trustworthy household name. And I'm not a salesperson. I will say this a million times over. I am not a salesperson. I cannot sell anything to anybody. I'm authentic. And
people respond well to that.
I'm vulnerable. My social media page is not a highlight reel. It's me whining and crying and ranting and highlights.
Yeah.
It's me. It's an open, that I wrote 2 books about my life and spared no secrets.
Yeah.
And so people know what they get. They know they can trust me. And when I got into real estate, people had already known all the impact and the things I've been doing in the community, which was not to market my real estate company because I had no idea I was getting into real estate. I see a lot of people get into real estate and then do charity to market their company. This was more authentic and from ground up. And when I got in the industry, I took off because I was a household name for somebody that you can trust, somebody that's empathetic and cares about people. And so when I got into the industry, I just relayed that. I mean, yeah, part of my stick is that I charge a lower commission because debate saying this out loud. I think that real estate agents are extremely overpaid, entitled, and arrogant for the most part. I really think that is, in the scheme of things, the easiest amount of money a person can make. Now, there's very difficult transactions where that's not true, but over the past couple of years, where after COVID hit and you could throw a house on the market and get 20 offers in one day and 30 days later walk away with a nice paycheck. To me, it was the easiest money I ever made because I never had a career or a job where I could just walk into money. It was hard labor. It was working in restaurants. It was, so I decided to cut my commission back and be a service worker in the industry. And when I say that, I mean putting people first, never counting my money, never relying on my commission, instead building happy customers and focusing on happy clients and satisfied clients. And I got to legally be careful what I say because it can be misinterpreted. But yeah, I give. If somebody buys a house and the refrigerator doesn't work, I'll buy a refrigerator. I want people to be happy. I want them to sing my praises. And I don't care if I make $1,500 less because I bought a refrigerator. I don't care if I have to kick $5,000 of my commission back to make the deal work. I just want people to be happy, and it's a numbers game. And then the referrals go out and people talk good about you, and boom, boom, boom.
And what's so nice is like, you sound so humble, man. That's huge. Like that, I guarantee people respond well to. That has to play a huge part. So before we go any further, for those that haven't read the book, I want to hear a little bit, maybe like one of your top memories that stand out or whatever. Because I mean, I can speak for myself as a fellow addict in recovery. The prologue, I was physically sweating, and what was so powerful to me was like the detail, for one, right? Oh yeah, well this
is actually book number 2. So
this is
Noam,
book
our
number 2.
producer behind the camera, is telling us to hold up this book. This is Danny's second book. It's called Falling Towards Heaven.
Yeah.
But we're actually talking about his first book right this second, Chasing a Flawed Son.
Yeah. And I mean, it was wild. I called Mitch right after, and I was like, dude, I just read the prologue and I had to take a break,
And I think like what I loved about your authenticity in that first book, and you brought it up, it wasn't even in my notes. You say like, I risk my life to go here. Like the truth in that, and like the fact that like it speaks to us is like, oh shoot, we got to buckle up, boys. It's about to get real. And
it was very well.
I want to say thank you for being vulnerable enough to put yourself in that position, because it is dangerous.
That just gave me chills because I forgot I said that.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
But it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Whenever we
Let's
reminisce.
talk about that real quick.
Do it.
So I've always been a writer. When I was a little kid, I wrote poetry, I wrote books, I did everything, that was my thing. And I wrote poems all through until I got expelled from high school for selling drugs, of course. I actually won the high school poetry contest out of the whole high school, but they couldn't give me the award because I was expelled from school at the time.
That day, right?
Yeah.
Was it related, like, because there was like an LSD ecstasy going on or something?
Yeah.
So you go win the competition, and then they can't give you the award because what is that? Just chaos starting right then?
Well, no. It was after I was expelled. It wasn't the same exact day.
Okay.
But so when I get clean and I'm 10, 15 years clean, and I'm like, God, what is my purpose? And I'm doing all this charity work, just trying to chase down my purpose. I know I got to write. I know I do. I got to tell I got a story and I got the skill. I know, I mean, 1 + 1 = 2, but I don't like commitment. I could write a 2-page story all day long, but to sit down and write my life story, that's a massive undertaking. I don't like commitment. So,
like, did you have help? Did somebody help you organize your thoughts? Or?
No, not at all. So I wrote the prologue, and I wrote the last part about the Temazcal ceremony in Tulum, Mexico. And then I was like, all right, I got some stuff here. I have no choice. I can't turn back now. So Costa Rica is my second home. One of my big things in recovery and in new life is travel. I love traveling. In Costa Rica, I've been to 40 sometimes.
Cool.
I purposely flew to Costa Rica during rainy season. The rainiest month of the year is October, and it rains from sun up to sundown, downpour. Because I knew if I had a distraction, if I could go to the beach, if I could do all this stuff, then I wouldn't get the book done. So I flew down there and I sat in the outdoor casita for 5 hours a day.
Sounds awesome.
5 hours a day with the rain just pouring down, typing. And I had to put myself in Costa Rica because for 10 years, I haven't had the urge to touch a drug. I don't really have the urge to drink. I mean, it's appealing, but I knew when I tapped back into this that all those feelings were going to come back.
And that was one of my questions for you. Was like, has your obsession been lifted? Like they talk about
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But I knew digging into that, and it's like once I got going, it was crystal clear, everything.
Yeah, it's wild.
You know, and my drunken experiences, they're hazy. I had blackouts and all that, but the heroin, the drugs, they didn't, you know, you don't get blackouts from heroin. I remember everything.
Yeah.
You know, and especially those ultra sensitive, hyper aware times of withdrawal and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I remember everything.
In your first book, like in the beginning, you were like pretty adamant against heroin, right?
For a
That
long
was,
time, right?
Yeah.
And I remember that your first experience with it, you didn't enjoy it. Like you remember a taste or something. Will you talk about like how you got into it, being so against it originally?
Well, you know, it's funny when I believe in predestiny, right? Our lives are written out way before we're even born. God knows, you know, it says so in the scripture that God knows our life before we're even born. So I was destined to become a heroin addict and overcome it. Like that was already written. When from a little boy on up, every song that I ever loved was written about heroin, unbeknownst to me. Like Mr. Brownstone was my theme song by Guns N' Roses when I was a teenager. Like every single song. So maybe that's just irony. I don't know. But the first time I tried heroin, I was an ego-fueled, selling cocaine, alcoholic, fighting all the time. So I looked down on junkies and addicts and all that kind of stuff. You know, I felt better than them. And I took a junkie friend of mine to the city to cop heroin, and he kept insisting I try it. And, you know, most of the listeners probably haven't tried heroin, but when you do it, you get nauseous and you just vomit, especially when you're not used to it. So that was my reaction. And I thought, what the hell would anybody want to do this for? It was miserable.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until years later when I tried it again because I was in love with a woman who was addicted that, man, it was like instant recall, but in a positive way. Like the warmth I got from it was like, I remember this feeling, but this time it feels good.
Okay. And everything changed there? That was the beginning of the end?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then take us through, like, how long did you ride this ride for?
You know what? When I really tally up the time using in the streets, it can't be that much because I was in jail so much. I mean, every 30 days I was back in jail. I mean, I just hit rock bottom so fast, and I got to thank my family for that because they were the exact opposite of enablers. Like it was like, out of my house, don't talk to us.
Yeah.
Threaten me with a restraining order. Don't come around. We got other children that we can't have you influencing. No, you can't have any money. No, you can't have anything type. So I was homeless rather quickly and scrounging on the city streets. So,
And in hindsight, are you grateful for that? Because I know like some issues as far as like criminal charges with your family specifically haunted you for some time. So, you know, how do you like, are you grateful your parents put you in that position, or, you know, that you put yourself in that position, but your parents responded the way they did? Or do you still like kind of struggle with like the way that all went down?
100% grateful.
Yeah.
And one of the keys that I talk about in recovery is personal responsibility. No matter what happens to me in my life, I'm responsible.
Yeah.
I can't put anything on them, you know. At the time, of course, I wasn't because I was still mentally immature. And as an addict, the first thing an addict does is blame everybody but themselves, right? So, of course, I was bitter then. But it's funny because I've owned a bail bonds business for 15 years. I've done all this charity work. I've created so many things in my life, but I still couldn't go rent an apartment if I wanted to. Yeah. I'll never be able to carry a handgun or I'm sorry, even own a gun.
Yeah.
I can't get in a business loan because of forgery charge from 1997 when I was an 18-year-old kid that stole my mommy's check. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's forever impacted my life, but I'm to blame.
Right.
I can't blame somebody else for that. You know?
Of course.
Yeah.
So let me ask you an abstract question, right? Where were you at spiritually back then? Where would you say your faith was at? You know, did you ever have moments of breakthrough moments where, because I remember there was one time in your book, I thought I wrote it down so I could remember. I didn't actually write it, but it said something like, you know, during each of these, you know, crazy instances or unspeakable acts or whatever, you had that voice of morality, right? Like that soft voice, and then you would just bury it. You know, I can relate to that, and I'm sure a lot of people struggling can. Like, where were you at with your spirituality or your faith back then?
So there's a couple things there. First off, like I said, I've always been an empathetic, caring person. So I would do things under the influence that were horrible. I mean, you read about my alcoholism. That was the worst. That's what I'm most ashamed of, is the people that I beat and hurt and just brutal, violent for no reason. And then I would wake up guilty the next day and drink it right away. I've always had a belief in God, always strongly. During my heroin addiction, I mean, I could physically remember nights where I'd slept under my parents' deck, just praying for God, please, please, please take this from me. Don't let me get high tomorrow. But and I would get up and go searching for heroin as soon as that, because you wake up sick. Yeah. You know, it's easy to say when you're high,
right,
like I don't want to do this anymore, but then you wake up sick and you go look for it again. And the fact of the matter is that I prayed to God fervently to take my addiction away, but God will move mountains, but you must bring the shovel. That's the saying. And I wasn't willing to do any work myself. I just wanted it magically lifted from me. And in retrospect, he answered my prayer. But yeah, I was always a spiritual person. I remember when I was on methadone for that year and a half, all I did was read all the religious texts. And I'm not just talking about Christianity. I dove into Buddhism and Hinduism and the Tai Chi, like everything, you know, and I was just always a spiritual pilgrim.
No, I love that. And like these stories, like going back thinking, is there any time where like maybe you're in prayer or like feeling close to God and you reminisce and think back to these times and you're just like, holy, like, how was that me in that situation? Do you have any of those like top memories that like, because some of your stories are absolutely crazy. I mean, like the one you brought up, you guys drove up the highway and there's guys on the roof with guns, you're going to a party.
Yeah, that one blew my mind.
There's just so many of these stories where it's like, you just lived this wild ride. Are there any that stick out exponentially to you? Or is it all just like a blur, like a decade of time or however many years it was, where it's just like, it's just wild, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like you said, the prologue, I mean, we had, I'm driving through the city with 3 dead people in the car and every single one of them came back to life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
wild.
Will you talk about
the
that?
amount of overdoses, you know, like, well, yeah, in the prologue of the book, I describe how I walked to the city and I ended up meeting up with 3 people and we all shot raw heroin and all 3 of them overdosed in the car. And I drove the car across the city to a McDonald's and I don't want to say I single-handedly brought them back to life. They probably would have came back anyways, but I was injecting, at the time, a cure for an overdose on the street was to inject somebody with salt water and putting ice on their testicles. And
Which I didn't know about.
I did that to the one male, not the two women, but they all 3 came back to life. You know, it's like I see God in the fact that there's one thing that really haunts me. And it was a night where I went down to the city to get high with a carload of kids and I bought a $40 jug of raw heroin and I shot it all at once with the intention of dying because I was a homeless, just had nothing going for. I was sick of being sick every day, stealing to get high, all that stuff. So I shot it all at once and I overdosed and started having seizures in the passenger seat of the car. These kids were like green, like they were just experimenting with sniffing heroin. They weren't anything like me and they were freaking out, but they drove back to the county because they didn't know what to do. And by the time we got back to the county, I had woke up. We went in their house and they had like a little house party and they split a $40 jug of raw heroin between 4 of them. So they only sniffed $10 worth each. I had shot the whole thing and
Yeah.
survived. The one kid who was 18 years old went home and died in his sleep that night.
Wow.
And so the next day, I was living in a storage room in an apartment building, homeless, and I walked down to a payphone and I call the kid and I'm like, "Hey, you guys want to do it again?" And they're like, "Dude, that kid died in his sleep last night." And I'm like, "Man, stop joking. Let's go to the city." And they're like, "No, I'm serious." And I'm like, at that point, they had homicide detectives come and interview me in jail. You know, they were trying to put a charge on me, saying that I'm the one that supplied the heroin. But I'm like, God, why? Like,
Yeah.
I'm intentionally trying to go. Like, I have nothing going for me. Like, I couldn't even conceive of the life I have now. As far as I was concerned, I was going to die any day anyways, you know? And here's this kid with his whole life in front of him who was just kind of it was like his second time ever sniffing dope. And supposedly he was like a straight A student and all this other stuff. And he does 1/4 of what I did nasally. And
Didn't
like,
make it.
it's so like, I still feel guilt in my heart when I talk about that. And I know it's not my fault, but that's part of the inspiration for why I am who I am and what I do, because I'm like, man, I should not be alive. And here I am. I got to devote my life to making this world a better place.
And it's like, you know, reading your story, you've been in prison, is it 29 times?
Not prison 20, but
Okay. Yeah, you've been locked up.
29 incarceration.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm only 44 years old, so some of those are just overnight or 48-hour stays. The longest stretch I ever did in one bit was 2.5 years. It was mostly just because I was on the streets. It was mostly petty theft and stupid stuff like that.
But in your first book, like you wanted to get clean, you wanted to change your lifestyle, but there was a couple of times you would get out and something would happen and you put yourself back in. Was there ever a time where, you know, maybe the 29th arrest or where you were like, this is it? Because it seemed like there was a couple of times you're like, that's it, I'm done, but it wasn't it. The last time, did you know it was the last time? Like, was it like, all right, that's it, I'm changing everything? Or was it just like you somehow made it out?
Yeah. It was like, I can't believe it worked this time. Like, yeah, everybody's like, what was that wow moment? What was it? What
was your jumping off point? Basically?
I'm like,
what was it? I mean, tell us.
I'm like, so I was an alcoholic, egomaniac, wannabe gangster, turned gangster. I mean, I did some gangster shit. I mean, you know, for all it's worth. Not that that's anything to be proud of now, but that's what I grew up as a kid in a middle-class family in the county who watched gangster movies and wanted to be a tough guy. And I went out and emulated all that. And I hurt a lot of people and I did a lot of cruddy stuff and I was ego-fueled. And I looked down on addicts and junkies and weak people. And then one day I became one. And when I realized that I was one, it was like, oh crap. Like, I need this to survive every day. I need to get off of this. I don't want to be like this.
Like you
and
didn't
every
realize
day,
it till it was too late.
Like every day it was like waking up in a panic attack. Like, what am I going to, I got to go get high. What's become of me? Like, you know, I had all these dreams of being this Scarface and here I am. Like, so I never wanted to be a junkie.
Yeah.
Never. And I tried to stop from, I didn't try hard enough, but I tried to stop from the very beginning, but I never surrendered. And I was never ready to surrender that life or that mentality, that ego mentality and all that kind of stuff. So it, you know, like I say in the back of the book and I say in the book, heroin saved my life because I wouldn't be who I am today without it. I was chasing my ego. I wanted to be something that I wasn't. And alcohol was leading me to either kill somebody or kill myself. And, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
No, you're good.
Now, when you see people going through that struggle out on the street and you want to have hope and you want to believe that they can turn it around, do you invest in that? Do you not get your hopes up? Like when you see people around you, people you care for, you know, falling guilty or victim to this disease, like how does that affect you? Do you want to get in and roll your sleeves up or are you kind of like, I got to just step back and let God do his thing?
Man, that's tough. And shout out to anybody that works in the recovery community hands-on, like in the treatment centers and all that stuff, because I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'm too much of an emotional human being.
Yep.
So,
and the statistics are what
man, I've gotten involved and I am so frustrated. Listen to me. I'm an ex-drug addict and I hate drug addicts. I don't mean I hate them. I hate the behaviors, like the lies and the manipulation. And I talk to them till I'm blue in the face. And I'm like, look at me. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm talking about. And they make excuses and they don't listen. And you try to tell them their behavior's not right. And they tell you you're a hater and just ridiculous stuff. And then they go out and die. And I'm like dying inside every time. And I just watch person after person after person die. So like the hands-on stuff, man, shout out to anybody who can do that because it sucks your soul away, man.
Yeah, for sure.
And we need people to do that.
Yeah.
So like my stance, and maybe I'm a coward, but like my stance is like shining my light from the mountaintop. You know what I mean? I'm not in the trenches, but I'm like, look at me. This is what I can do. Here's how to do it. Like I will absolutely reach out and talk to anybody. You know, I'll sponsor. I'll do whatever I can. If somebody is willing and comes to me, I will not go do an intervention on somebody that's unwilling. I will not go talk to somebody that's unwilling to change. Like people ask me all the time, that's a fruitless waste of time. Like nobody can change anybody. They have to be willing to do it themselves. We all know that. But yeah, it's tough. That's
Does it get
but I know it's
harder?
my duty. It's my duty to constantly, you know, that's why I'm here today. That's why I'm doing a speaking engagement in 2 days. That's why I'll do anything I'm asked because I have to.
Do you consider it like stepping in the fire and like you'll get burned so you can only do it for a little bit and then need to get back out?
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it affects you to have to get into this.
Yeah. Well, naturally, I'm an introvert. I'm not a social creature, and despite what many people think because of my social media. But in person, I'm an introvert. I need my recharge times all the time.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
Yeah.
What do you do for that?
I was going to ask, yeah.
I just sit in the house.
Yeah.
I got
Smoke
cats,
a couple
man.
cigars.
I got cats, bro.
And your cat's like becoming famous.
I get cold brew coffee, my cigar, my laptop. I work on my laptop.
Yeah.
I write. I make stat. You know, I interact in social media and all that kind of stuff. But I need to be able to get away from things. You know, as an addict, as a recovered addict or alcoholic, we can't put ourselves in uncomfortable situations. So we have to know ourselves. You know, if I go to a bar or a nightclub or a social outing or a party, I drive myself, I hang out shortly, I say hello, make my presence known, and leave. You know, it's just, you know your boundaries and you know how to set them and act accordingly.
Have any of those situations been extremely tempting, or is it like, you know, you got to go when you got to go?
Yeah, no, I'm good. The only thing that's tempting for me, and you know I like to vacation, I like tropical places, is watching everybody with their fancy umbrella drinks, and I can't have one.
Yeah. So
I have no desire to go back to drinking Mad Dog or 40s or anything like that anymore.
Yeah.
Like that's disgusting. And that was my drink of choice because I was broke.
But a pina colada on the beach isn't as easy to turn a blind eye to.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, man, the fact that you've been through what you've been through, and it's funny, like the credibility you have in this community, like we live an hour away from each other, and it's like your credibility is like saturated throughout all of Baltimore and all the surrounding areas. And it wasn't always like that for you. You know, your reputation has hurt you at times of getting into where you want to go. How did you shift that? Because it seemed, I mean, I haven't known you the whole time, but like, it seems effortless for you. And like, it seems like you've had this credibility for a long time. Like you're used to it. So like, what was that like getting that? And like, were you nervous? Like, am I going to let these people down again? Or is it like, finally people see me?
So as far as, I think we're talking authenticity and vulnerability again. I just said yesterday that I wear my recovery, I wear my past, I wear my depression and anxiety because I struggle hard with those. I wear all my weaknesses like a badge. You know, you ever seen 8 Mile?
Of course.
And Eminem's not my.
It's a great
he's not.
movie.
He's talented, but he's not my cup. He's talented, but he's not my cup of tea. I don't listen to him or anything. But the battle at the end, where he goes up and he says everything bad about himself, and then the other guy's like left dumbfounded and doesn't. That's my protection. That's my armor. If I tell everything that somebody can use against me, then I feel invincible after that, right? Like, what are you going to do? You have to lie to get at me. Like, if anybody has anything bad to say about me, it's got to be a lie because I've already said everything.
Yeah.
Like, and so I wear it, number one, to protect myself in a strange way. And number two, to let other people know it's okay. And I'm like you I'm humble. I'm not some tough guy that I wanted to be my whole life. Now I'm just willing to do the opposite and say, listen, man, I'm just like everybody else. I suffer from depression. I suffer from anxiety. I'm weak. It's only by the grace of God I'm alive right now,
What advice do you give to those people struggling with anxiety, depression, who are like, man, I could never get on a podcast if I was an introvert struggling with anxiety? Like, what advice do you give them as far as like how to go out into the world and just operate?
It is a slow process.
Time.
Listen, and that's another thing about recovery. People want everything right away. And when they don't get it, they go back to getting high and drinking because they give up and get frustrated. You're talking to somebody here that has 22 years now in this recovery thing. I waited tables for the first 6 years. I chased everything. That's what this book right here is about.
Yep.
Me chasing everything that's wrong until I found out what was right. And I was shy. I still wore a heavy ego, because the people that are the most insecure are the ones that walk around with a chip on their shoulder and act the toughest. I didn't realize that. I was, I was walking around. All I cared about was how many gold chains I had and how expensive my clothes were
That Gucci sweater,
how tough I was, and all this stuff because I was covering up the weak guy inside.
Sure.
Now it's the opposite.
Yeah.
But what was the original
to the
question?
person that's like, I could never do that. Like my anxiety is too crippling.
My anxiety is debilitating, and there's nothing I hate more than public speaking. And I was having an anxiety attack right here before you pulled me on the show, either from too much coffee or I don't know what. But,
We'll get you the small next time.
and I've spoke in front of audiences of a couple thousand. I've gotten up on stages at churches. I've been on Good Morning Washington, the 700 Club, a lot of different things. And still to this day, it makes my heart palpitate even thinking about it. But what I've learned is the only way to grow is to struggle. Just like the seed has to push against the dirt to bloom into a plant or a flower. And that's what we were put here on this earth for, is to grow from struggle. This is a training ground. Like, we weren't promised happiness and peace on earth. This is where we grow, and then we go back to happiness and peace. So I confront everything. I was scared of heights, so I went skydiving, and then I went skydiving like 4 more times, and I climbed Mount Machu Picchu.
Cool.
And every time I'm asked to speak, I say yes because I know I don't want to, and I know I hate it. And the first times I was shaking so bad I wanted to vomit, and now I just shake bad, but I don't need to vomit. It gets a little better each time.
No, and I think that's what a lot of people can take. That's what I take, is you would seek uncomfortability. And I think that's such a valuable skill that people can take, where it's like, I may not be able to, donate at the same rate that you are donating, but it's like, I can take these small little steps. And one thing that makes me uncomfortable is smiling at someone and saying hi. So maybe hold the door for somebody, and just start as simply as that, just a nice smile or something. So
I'm sorry.
No, please.
That is a perfect example.
Okay.
I mean mugged my whole life. Mm-hmm. Arms crossed. I go to the club, even I'm up against the wall, just waiting for the next person to fight. I'm in prison stance everywhere I went. Even when I promoted nightclubs, everybody's like, why don't you ever, I wouldn't smile for pictures, nothing.
Yeah.
So I smile. Hey, how you doing? I break conversation with people that don't want to talk, all that stuff. Now, like, I force myself to do these things because it's like any other exercise, going to the gym. The more you do it, the stronger you get at it. And,
and they say that, they say, get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah. I'm glad we made that point, because I think anybody going out of this conversation can take that and implement it some way, shape, or form for their own life.
Now, before we go on to, you mentioned, before we let it pass, when you were saying you learned all the things that were wrong until you found the one that was right. What's the one that's right?
Well, there's a whole book about it.
There it is.
I can tell you what's wrong.
Yeah.
I got, when I got clean, I did the same exact thing that I see every other kid do out there. We'll just use men for my example, because I'm a man. First thing I do is chase women. I chase money. I chase
things,
my image, clothing, all this stuff. Every single thing. There's a huge list of things that I chased that weren't filling the hole inside of me. It's easier said than done, but spirit, God, even if you don't have a God or believe in a God, which I can't wrap my mind around surviving without that belief. Like that's what keeps me afloat some days. But even if you don't, it's just doing the next right thing and helping other people and serving other people and building yourself up for personal growth, getting to know yourself and growing. I mean, all those things are the formula. And that's what I try to do.
I was going to touch on that before you jumped in. You mentioned growth earlier. You know, we're here for growth and advancement. Where are you growing now in life, and what's next? Like, what are you setting your sights on now?
So I've still got the nonprofit stuff. Right now I'm in a personal kingdom building phase. I'm in a selfish phase. Like I said, I had the bail bonds business, and that I had 3 years where I made really good money and I managed to save a chunk of that. In the very beginning, I did the immature stuff and I bought everything brand name that I could, active flashy. And then I had the epiphany, and then I started giving back. Then I had like 3 or 4 years where I had over 100,000 in the bank, and I blew it all on charity and travel. And then I started from scratch. And during the course of that time, I wrote the 2 books. Now I've started in this real estate industry. I'm my 3rd year in. The first year I didn't really take it seriously. The second year I sold 120 houses, which is unheard of.
Insane.
And last year I sold 101. I've got a team under me. I bought an office. I did all these things in this really short amount of time that don't usually happen that fast. And I'm scrambling to put the pieces together. And at this time, I'm having a lot of fun building something and constantly fine tuning the services and the things that I offer to people. And I'm able to minister in real estate. And when I say minister, I don't mean like shoving my religion down somebody's throat. I mean like helping people.
Yeah.
And it's become really cool. And the next step in that process is me lifting up my team and getting more and more people to the place where I am and where I want to be, and constantly evolving that way. At some point, the real estate market's going to slow, and I'm going to have time to go back to writing. And I'm never letting go of the charity. Like, I'm actively doing charity work. I'm taking a bunch of people to Costa Rica in 2 weeks. You know, I just did the 250 people for the toy run. We just did a senior housing party, homeless feedings, and all that.
What are you guys doing in Costa Rica?
So this is really interesting. Let me start a square one with this.
All right.
I've led 16 mission trips now. My first mission trip was with a group of people to Peru, and we went on a houseboat like 8 hours up into the Amazon jungle.
That story's crazy.
Yeah, and there's like pink dolphins in the Amazon River, if you didn't know this. Like, yeah,
That's crazy.
legit pink dolphins. And like we went piranha fishing, we went alligator hunting at night, but we
On a banana boat, or is that
on
a
a
typo? Because
a
a banana boat's like an inflatable.
No.
Okay.
What they
like
call
the-
banana boats, they transport the bananas from the jungle, and they're like real long canoe looking.
I'm expecting like when you go like parasailing and there's all those rubber bananas. I'm like, alligator bites
that would be
you're
hilarious.
gone. I was like, man, I'm glad I wasn't on that banana boat. All right,
But
understood.
we docked on the shore, and we went up into the village, and we helped install water filtration systems in some of their huts, and we helped to build a community center, and it opened my eyes big time there. And
You made a point in there where you, instead of like going and trying to spread your faith and making people believe, you said you go and you act and help. And I think that's incredibly valuable and something that I really respect you for, because I've been on both sides of both mission trips where it's like, hey, let's just like agape, let's love through action. Like, you're so good at that. And I just want to really press in on the fact that like I resonated with that personally.
yeah, I mean, I want to make clear that I'm not judging or throwing stones at anybody, because,
Sure.
but it's my personal preference not to go beat God into people and like tell them what to believe and
You
how to believe
can't.
it.
It
Like,
doesn't resonate.
It's just not me. So people are always like, well, what church do you go on your mission trips with? I don't go with a church.
Right.
I brought Muslims, Jews, atheists, and majority Christians on my trip with me. And we don't really talk about, we might pray over our meals, but we don't beat it into people. I want to show love and humanity through action. I want to lift people up and help them, and not go in and tell them what they believe is wrong and they need to believe what I believe and all that kind of stuff. And you nailed it. That's what agape means. So we're on a houseboat in the middle of the jungle, and what's cool is they lock us in a cage at night. And I know that all this is irrelevant to the podcast, but I like sharing it.
I love it.
Like 2 times in the middle of the night, we heard gunshots go off because pirates were approaching our
Yeah.
ship.
And you said the bars like on the windows were actually on the inside.
Yeah.
So
But we had 2 armed guards up on the roof of the boat all night because they actually had pirates on the Amazon River.
Wow.
Like you wouldn't think of. But anyway, so I got hooked. And then I've done Honduras, Nicaragua, Guatemala.
I got to cut you real quick. That's so crazy. Like you gave a testimony of like, there was guys on the roof. We had to fire off shots. There's balls inside.
Sounds
I got
familiar.
hooked. Like, we're, like wolves run together.
Yeah.
I think we're that type of people where like in that chaos, we kind of thrive in it. When you make it out safe and you feel like you made a positive difference, it's like, oh, I'm needed there. Like, so, I love it. We all need to take a trip together. It sounds like at one point.
So that brings me back to, I did Honduras a couple times, Guatemala, Nicaragua, a lot of different trips. And then I went to Haiti. And I've never in a million years dreamt that there was something like Haiti out there. The TVs don't do it justice. They live in complete trash and filth. It's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. City Soleil is probably the poorest country in the world. I mean, poorest slum in the world. And it's just extensive trash and decay and people with nothing, kids naked. Half of the kids are slaves. We would go in these towns and bring tanker trucks full of fresh water, and they would fill up their trash can or their bucket or whatever, and that was their water for the week.
Yeah.
And
you said like people are carrying inflatable pools and stuff.
Yeah. Whatever they could, they fill up with water for the water for the week. And that was the water they used for everything for the week. And like women would come up to me and hand me their baby and then run off because they know that the baby's not going to survive with them and it has a better chance
like
with
the
me.
best chance it has is to give it away.
We have to like track them down and give them their baby back.
Yeah.
Or we like saw babies that what we thought were babies and come to find out the child's 12 years old and has never had enough nourishment to grow. Like mind blowing stuff. We saw dead babies. We saw dead people. I come back wrecked, like come back destroyed. And I'm like, I got to go back.
Wow.
Like I got to go back.
Yeah.
And
that's powerful.
It's a rare breed.
Went 3 times and then boom, COVID hit. And now the country, like they just executed their president over there and the country's run by gangs. And like City Soleil, the slum that we went to, last I heard there was a 490 person death count in 2 weeks. They're raping and murdering and just the country is just, they can't catch a break over there, but there's such good people there. The humility, the love, it's heartbreaking. I just can't, it's hell on earth.
So do you feel like you have to get back?
Well, I can't. There's no way. Like
Not
when
now.
it's possible.
Yeah.
Let's say it becomes possible, but it's extremely risky. Are you going? Or are you going to wait it out for
I mean, the mission trips I bring people with me, I don't care where I go. I've survived,
Right.
Whatever God's fate is for me, like if God wants me to die, I'll die. You know what I mean? But I can't bring other people and put them, I'm responsible.
Safety.
Yeah, exactly. So I told that whole story because I had a dream I wanted to start something called Heroin to Haiti, where I took all guys in early recovery over to Haiti to see the shit.
Teach them some gratitude.
The absolute unbelievable conditions that these people live in. So when they're back at home and they're complaining to their house manager because their roommate drank their milk or they have to share a bunk with somebody or all this ridiculous stuff, the lack of gratitude that I see in these people, like, dude, you just survived heroin. Like you're and to serve plus to see the world, there's still beautiful parts. Like, so I wanted to develop this thing, but it was going to be a lot of red tape and especially finding the money to sponsor guys to do it. But anyways, COVID happened. Mm-hmm. So Costa Rica, I've been to many, many times and I know pastors down there and I connected with a church in a poor area and I decided to do that model, but do it in Haiti. So I got 16 people together last year and I said, 4 of them will be people in treatment housing and I will pay for their trips. And everybody else is in recovery, but a little older in recovery. And we went down and we did it, and it was awesome. So,
and how are those 4 doing? The 4 that were recently,
as far as I know, they're doing
still good.
Yeah.
Wow.
You still keep in contact with them?
Yeah.
Is that nerve wracking? Like, cause like, you talk statistics and like, what if somebody gets sick on this trip, or like, is there heightened like logistics you have to go through for taking these people? Or is it just like,
that was my second trip to Costa Rica. Yeah. I mean, I've never really, I feel like the only person that gets sick and poops herself is me. No, that happened to me. That happened to me twice in Honduras.
Drank the water.
No, because I'm a dummy and I eat roadside. I buy fruit off the guy on the corner on the side of the road and eat it or whatever.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, whatever happens. And Costa Rica is that's my second home, and I have resources there. It's definitely nothing like Haiti, so it's a lot safer there and more manageable. This time, in a couple weeks, not everybody on this trip is in recovery. I just go on Facebook, and this is how I've always done my mission trips. And I say, hey, I'm going to such and such country at this month. Who wants to go? And a bunch of people are like, I'll go. And
that's awesome.
That's it.
Yeah,
no church, no organization. Let's go. Trust me. I do this. You'll be safe.
Yeah.
Everything will be good.
You make it easy for people, which I think is awesome. So congrats on that. If there's anyone else out there that does this kind of stuff, I encourage you, make it easy for people to get involved, to join, because it makes a huge positive difference, man. And it's incredible to watch. Are you going to call Costa Rica home one day and stay?
Well, I don't know.
You sound like it.
Yeah, I always wanted to, but
You got a lot of work to
I'm
do
in
here.
love with Mexico too, man.
Yeah,
I don't
Tulum.
know. Yeah.
Yeah,
Tulum,
those cenotes, those underground pools and stuff.
Cenotes, yeah.
Cenotes.
But Tulum, look, for the record, I was doing Tulum before it was trendy. I've been going for like 15 years.
Okay.
Before, when it was just a little beach ecotourism
So it's probably
town.
breaking your heart to see.
Oh my God, it's destroyed now.
Yeah.
I mean, I still love it because the culture, the clubs, the restaurants, there's nowhere in the world with restaurants and just ecotourism hotels and all that like that. But they're tearing down the jungle at a massive rate and the traffic and everything. And now that, like anything, when Americans flood in, then they want cocaine and drugs. And then next thing you know, you got cartels moving in and all. It's turned into a huge party town.
Wow.
Which is the same thing that's happened to every town that I love in Costa Rica. Once the Americans find out, they ruin it.
Secret gets out.
Not
It's
just
over.
the Americans, but the Europeans, the Canadians, the South Americans, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know why people can't travel without partying, but it seems,
Yeah.
Yeah. They like to turn up when they get out.
yeah. You can do that at home.
Yeah, for sure. Now, if you could fix like one issue instantly, is it addiction? Is it kids without parents? Like if you could, I know this kind of like a little off topic, maybe transitioning, but if there was one thing that you could just like fix at the switch,
Holy smoke.
what would
It's
it
a
be?
big one. It's a big question.
Good grief.
You got one? No?
That's big, bro. That's
Yeah,
big.
that's you, man. You got to prepare me for that.
Surprise.
Well, here's the funny thing, right? Here's the ultimate conundrum. If you fix, let's say I say I would cure cancer,
Yeah.
or I would, no baby would ever die, no abortions, no nothing like that. What happens to the economy? It's flooded with millions and millions of people that wouldn't have passed away. This country becomes a third world country. So how do we navigate that?
Yeah.
Like, what's the right answer?
And
Because
see, it opens
it's
a
like,
can of worms.
yeah,
man.
it's like, that's a tough, like maybe it's as simple as like every human being finds God or finds,
That's what I was gonna say.
or something like that. It would
Yeah.
be because it's like the,
funny, like,
the
I didn't think
butterfly
about that.
effect. You don't know what it'll cause.
Fixing a problem creates a new one.
Right.
Yeah.
And then how do we deal with
The
that?
earth has a way of cleansing itself. God has a way of keeping symbiosis here. Like
Right.
that goes deep.
And I mean, as far as why we experience pain here, right, on Earth, it's a struggle, right, for a lot of people almost every day, right? And it's like, why is that? What is it? What's the result of struggle? For a lot of people, it brings them closer to God, right? So it's like you hear people all the time, well, if God was real and God's everywhere, then why does he allow? Why? Do you go to him when those times happen? I know I did. You know what I mean? Foxhole praying, man, I mean,
And it's that mindset of like heroin saved my life. You know,
Right.
Like I needed this.
Yeah.
to
I would have
become who I am.
never found God without heroin.
it builds your faith.
But-
those
but-
pain moments.
But that's what my belief is, and I touched on it earlier, is that we are all pieces of God. We're all in his image. We all share the same spirit. We have our separate spirits, but we're all pieces. When we go back to heaven, we're all united. But when we come here separate, it's a training ground. It's the struggle. And I say this to people all the time when they're like, whoa, if God was real, why would my aunt die or whatever? I'm like, was she destined to be eternal? Like that's part of life.
Yeah.
This is just our vessel.
We all check out eventually.
Yeah, this is just our vessel. And like any moment of suffering or struggle or whatever, that's painful to us. But to God, that's like my son or my daughter is growing. Like,
Yeah.
like we came here to struggle, to grow, and then we go back to the peace and happiness. You know?
If everything was roses, why do we need God? Right.
Right.
If everything's
We
roses,
wouldn't
you
know
depend
what's
on yourself.
good if there was no bad.
Right.
It gives
Right.
value to the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
To the person, because I don't want to hold you all day, I know you're busy, but to the person that is struggling with addiction, that wants to be clean, what advice for step one do you give that person?
Exactly what it says. Surrender.
Surrender.
Surrender. You cannot control your addiction. You cannot, oh, I don't want to go into treatment because I have a job, or I don't want to go into treatment because I'm with my girlfriend, or I don't, you know.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Look, it's cliche going to treatment, but there is no way that I would ever stop drinking or getting high unless I was in jail or a treatment center. No way. And 99, I'm not 99, but 60% of the time people just walk out of the treatment centers.
Yeah.
So you're going to end up going to jail if you don't go to treatment. Like, it's inevitable. It's
Jails,
inevitable.
institutions, and death, right?
So stop making excuses. Stop blaming anybody in the world for what's happened to you. It's all your responsibility. I don't care what you went through as a child. I don't care how bad the trauma is. You still made the choices that have led you into the disease of addiction. I do believe that it's a genetic thing, but you still actively make choices within the process. And
so then that person decides, okay, I want to get out of this. I need a hand up. And they reach for help. Do you recommend like a certain treatment center or a certain nationwide, business or somewhere where somebody could call or go to, like, as opposed to just being like, all right, I'm taking responsibility. I want this to end, but I need help or a resource. Do you stand behind any? Do you have any recommendations?
I can't really do that. Yeah.
No, that's fine. And I didn't.
I don't have an 800 number. I know of a lot of great treatment facilities in the state of Maryland. I don't know anything outside of Maryland.
Okay.
If anybody actively wants to seek treatment, message me, find me on Facebook, and I will direct you to somebody that can place you in a bed. Okay. The only one that I know of that will take a person without any insurance whatsoever is the Helping Up Mission in Baltimore, and that's a wonderful place. But if you have state insurance or private insurance, there's hundreds of good places you can go.
Cool. And then to the person, and we kind of talked on it, but maybe just reiterate it, to the person that's not struggling with that, but they have empathy and their heart goes out. Is there a place, whether it's, donating to your charity or coming to serve, like, is there a way that people locally in our community could get involved that want to help make a difference?
Well, the Agape Projects, which is theagapeprojects.org, you can get involved with us anytime. I encourage that. But what I also want to say is, and I get messages all the time. Hey, Dan, I came across this woman and she's living in a van. Or, hey, Dan, I came across this homeless person and he's really sweet. And can you help him? I wasn't the one that was put in his path. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, you literally came across this person and felt empathy for this person. So help him.
So
you
that
know what I
person
mean?
that's like, that's great advice, but how do I help?
I'm not a wellspring of money. Like, so my nonprofit, unfortunately, I don't have any grant writers. I put money into it out of my own personal finances. And then when I have a certain,
if there's any grant writers out there, let's help out my guy here. Let's get him to his full potential with this, because dude, I'm telling you, if there's anything that I can do to help personally, you deserve it. And like,
I appreciate
it's
that.
making a crazy impact. So I didn't mean to cut you off though.
No, it's fine. So I live by the tithe rule. I put at least usually about 20% of my income into the charity or back in the community, but that only covers so much. And when we have toy runs or we have certain things, I'll go on social media and I'll say, hey, does anybody want to help this person donate to the Agape Projects? And then we immediately give all that money right back to that person. So we don't carry a balance.
Awesome.
So that being said,
agapeprojects.org.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll put a link in the description below. If anybody wants to go there and donate, we appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.
That being said, though, I can't, every single time somebody messages me because they can't pay their light bill or they saw a homeless person, I can't make a post, let's raise money for this person. It would get super like redundant or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, we all know how to help people, but sometimes it's just easier to pass the buck. Like
That's big.
I never reached out to anybody when I saw somebody in need. I went and helped them. If I go to the store and buy them clothes or a blanket, or if I, if you're that broke, then help yourself first and let the next person that finds a person help them. You know what I mean? Like
Awesome.
we have to help ourselves before we can help others. But yeah,
I love it. No, that's great.
Yeah.
Anything you got?
No, man. I mean, your story's powerful, bro. Thanks for being here with
Yeah,
us.
is there anything you want to make sure we touch on? No? Okay. So we got the agapeprojects.org. Danny's real estate team is Victory.
the Victory team at
Victory
Homeowners
team?
Real Estate,
And what counties or what areas do you guys serve?
Maryland, bro.
Maryland.
I do the majority of my work in Baltimore and Harford counties, but a lot in Cecil, Anne Arundel, Howard, and I've even done Ocean City and Frederick.
Awesome.
I've sold quite a few in Ocean City.
So any Maryland listeners or people considering moving to Maryland, Danny's your guy on that. I want to just encourage everyone to check out his books. His first one is called Chasing a Flawed Son. It's in print. It's also on Audible. The second book is print only. You going to turn that into an Audible?
No, I'm not.
Come on.
I'm gonna wrap this. I'm gonna wrap up. I'm gonna wrap up the end here with why it's called Chasing a Flawed Son. So depression and anxiety haunt me, especially in the wintertime. I got seasonal affective disorder. As soon as the days get shorter, the weather gets colder, I suffer from depression and anxiety hard. I'm going through it right now. I hate January and February the most. But anyways, the sun brings me peace, warmth, comfort. There's nothing more I like than feeling the sun on my skin. And there was only one other thing in the world that brought me that feeling, and that was heroin. It brought me all, it took away my worries. It made me feel peaceful. It made me feel warm and comfortable, and took away my fear and everything else. But it was a flawed sun because it almost burned me alive, and it burns a lot of people alive. So now in like my new life, now that I can afford to, I like to go to Costa Rica and Mexico and these sunny places in the winter and chase the sun. Back then I was chasing the flawed sun, but it's also a double entendre because sun can also be spelled S-O-N. And I chase that sun as well, the Son of God, because like take religion out of it. Jesus was like the most perfect person. And if I spend every day of my life trying to be more like him, if I set him as a role model, which I can't ever achieve, like it's impossible to achieve perfection, then I'm always chasing something positive. Like I'm always trying to be like a goal that I will never attain. And when we as humans attain goals, we're never happy. Like our happiness is the journey. It's in the chase, right? Wow. Because once we attain something, then we want to move on to the next thing. So like I set my goal in life trying to chase Jesus and trying to be more like this unattainable goal. And that way I'm forever focused and I'm forever happy. And I'm not looking back at doing things that are negative to myself because I'm always chasing this positive attainment.
Love it. Yeah. Well, I want you to know I'm in your corner, fanning your flames. If you ever need help and there's anything I can do to contribute, man, I'm here to ride with you. I appreciate you being our first guest. Dude, this was, I could have thought of nothing better to sit down and chop it up. Hey, Noam, will you grab the jacket and the coffee mugs? We got a little gift for you, Danny, we want to give to you before you get out of here. And I want to say thank you to all the viewers, everybody watching, listening, viewing. We just ask that you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, tune back in with us. Statistics say when you ask people to do something, they're more likely to do it. So we want you to come back. I'm asking you to come back. We got another incredible guest for our next episode. It's Sheena Sadum. She gives back, and we've actually all served together. I don't know if you remember Sheena Sadum or not, but really looking forward to the future. Christian, thanks for being a co-host. To my production team in the back, we got Jason, we got Noam, and I just want to say thank you to you guys. You guys are awesome. I'm excited about this. All right, thank you, Noam. All right, Danny, you go ahead and open that up.
It's like Christmas time. You can tell me I was getting gifts and coffee.
All right, so we got the questions over coffee.
Yeah.
Track jackets. That's for you, my friend. Here's your jacket. I got you the XL. Christian, you're going to rock the black one.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I got one for Noam, and I got one for Jason as well. Oh,
Hey-o.
look at that. Look at that. Couldn't get him out of here without knocking him on the head. For anybody listening on audio-only versions, you might want to check out the video podcast. You can see a little bit of behind the scenes. I won't hold you any longer. Danny, I can't say thank you enough, man.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone on the back end checking us out. We will see you on the next one. Peace.